I lied to my pick-me friend and now she's stuck with a massive tattoo because of it. Plus all updates. It's been about 2 years since this happened, but I just got confirmation from someone who was at her tattoo appointment that she literally did it because of what I told her. And I still can't believe it. So, let's rewind. I, 25F at the time, was introduced to Peggy, fake name, also 25F, through a mutual friend. She had just moved into the apartment unit next to them and got folded into our friend group pretty quickly. Right away, I had a gut feeling she and I weren't going to mesh. She had this way of giving backhanded compliments that felt more like digs. But I didn't want to be judgmental, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I even invited her to a game night a friend and I were hosting. Spoiler alert, big mistake. Game 1, Sardines. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically hide and seek in reverse. During a drunken round in the dark, Peggy faked a fall and shoved my head into a shelf. I know she faked it because she admitted it right there, laughing, saying, "I found him first, that's why I pushed you." My forehead had a bump the size of a golf ball. Game 2, King's Cup. During the Never Have I Ever round, she decided to call me out about my divorce. Everyone there already knew, and my friends had been really supportive through that rough time. But the way she said it was dripping with judgment, like she was trying to shame me in front of the group. It was mean, not playful. The whole night went like that, little jabs, little digs, petty attempts to single me out. By the end, I was convinced she had some kind of personal vendetta against me. Didn't take long to figure out what, or more specifically, who, it was. One of our friends, Mark, 28M, was there that night. Tall, funny, charming, just one of those people everyone gravitates toward. Catnip for pick-me types. At the time, Mark and I were close friends. Peggy clearly did not like that. From then on, anytime he was around, she made it her mission to embarrass me. We're talking 6 straight months of nonsense. Interrupting me mid-sentence, trying to outdo me with petty one-up stories, making sly comments when Mark laughed at one of my jokes. She once even accused me of flirting with him because I handed him a drink. Like, girl. Calm down. So, enter the tattoo drama. For context, I'd been planning to get a dragon tattoo for over a year. Dragons have a personal meaning for me and my mom, and I had been working with my artist to incorporate her favorite flowers into the design. Yeah, dragons are trendy, but it mattered to me. About a month before my appointment, Peggy overheard me talking about it with a friend. Suddenly she was full of questions. What kind of dragon, where on my body, what style, what did it mean? I swear, I could see the light bulb go off in her head. That smug little grin told me everything. She wanted to steal the idea. That's when my light bulb went off. When she asked me for specifics, I lied. I told her I loved the movie Spirited Away, true, it's amazing, and went on this whole tangent about how it was special to me because my dad showed it to me as a kid, and that I thought it'd be so cool if the dragon character, Haku, wrapped around my arm in tattoo form. Peggy had never seen the movie. So I encouraged her to check it out and ended the conversation. Now, I honestly didn't think she'd actually go through with it. I figured she'd get distracted by the next shiny thing, or maybe Google it and realize how obvious it would be if she copied me. But nope. 2 weeks later, she showed up with her arm wrapped in bandages. She pulled them off to show the group. And there it was. A massive dragon wrapping around her arm. Not a cute little minimalist tattoo, not a tiny ankle piece. Full commitment. My fake idea. She was so smug about it too. She was waiting for me to freak out, to accuse her of copying me, to be upset. Instead, I just stood there in shock. She probably thought my silence meant I was furious. But when I went home that night, I laughed so hard I cried. Then I felt bad. Then I laughed again. Then I felt bad again. It was a cycle. I figured that was the end of it, just one of those wild things you never tell anyone. But 2 years later, I confessed to a mutual friend that I lied about the tattoo idea. That's when she told me the kicker. She had gone with Peggy to the tattoo appointment that day. And Peggy, word for word, had said, she's going to be so upset. This is the exact tattoo she wanted. And here's the best part, Peggy still hasn't even seen Spirited Away. She just Googled pictures of Haku and went with it. Later, when people started asking questions about the tattoo, she got all flustered and ended up saying, "Dragons are my spirit animal. They represent my soul." I almost choked trying not to laugh when I heard that. So yeah. She tried to copy me, but instead of stealing something meaningful, she branded herself with my fake story permanently. To this day, I flip between feeling like the world's biggest jerk for lying and feeling like karma finally came through in the pettiest, funniest way possible. Edit, clearing a few things up. I did not expect my story to blow up like it did. Reading through the comments has been wild. Half of you are calling me petty, fair, the other half are calling me a legend, which is a stretch, but thank you. Since a lot of questions came up, here's an update with some clarifications and a few more details I left out the first time. First off, Mark. Everyone wants to know about him. The truth is, nothing happened there. I did turn him down once early in our friendship, before Peggy was ever in the picture. He's a great guy, funny, kind, one of those people who makes everyone feel included, but I just never felt that spark. We settled into a solid friendship. That's it. Peggy's whole months-long obsession with trying to compete with me over him was totally one-sided. He was pretty oblivious to it at the time, and I didn't want to drag him into unnecessary drama, so he didn't actually find out about the tattoo situation until way later. His reaction deserves its own story, but I'll get to that eventually. Second, guilt. Yes, I lied. And yes, it is permanent. For a while, I did feel kind of bad about it. The night she showed me the tattoo, I went home and had this back and forth with myself. One minute I was cackling, the next I was staring at the ceiling wondering if I had crossed a line. It's one thing to let her embarrass herself in the moment, it's another thing entirely to let her ink it into her skin forever. But then I'd remember her smug grin when she thought she had stolen something from me. I'd remember her pushing my head into a shelf, or calling out my divorce to shame me, or cutting me down every chance she got. And the guilt would fade right back into laughter. Third, the confirmation. A lot of people asked how I know for sure she did it to spite me. Well, my friend, who I'm much closer to now, was at Peggy's appointment that day. They weren't close at the time, just acquaintances, but she tagged along. And she told me later that Peggy literally said, out loud, she's going to be so upset. This is the exact tattoo she wanted. Not I've always loved dragons, not this design is really meaningful to me. No. Her reasoning was to get under my skin. And this is where it gets even better. Peggy had never even seen Spirited Away. Like, at all. After I first told her about Haku, I encouraged her to watch it, figuring she'd either get bored or realize it wasn't her thing. Instead of actually watching the movie, she just Googled Spirited Away dragon and pulled reference pictures from Pinterest. Fast forward a few months later, she was trying to explain her tattoo at a group hangout and clearly realized people might think it was copied. She panicked and went with, "Dragons are my spirit animal. They represent my soul." I almost had to leave the room to keep from bursting out laughing. Spirit animal. Soul dragon. It was like every cliché rolled into one, and she said it with a completely straight face. And yes, this means she is walking around with a massive dragon tattoo that is literally based on a movie she's never seen and a lie I made up to get her off my back. Do I feel bad? Sometimes. Tattoos are permanent, and I wouldn't want anyone tricking me into one. But Peggy wasn't some innocent bystander who just happened to overhear me. She went out of her way, for months, to try to one-up me and embarrass me in front of people. She made a choice, no one forced her to copy me. She thought she was stealing something meaningful, when really she was just branding herself with her own pettiness. The irony is almost too perfect. The last thing I'll add for now, I never told Peggy the truth. She probably still thinks she beat me to it. My real tattoo, the one with the dragon and flowers for my mom, is on my back, and she's never seen it. So, as far as she knows, she won. And honestly, I think that's funnier than if I'd ever rubbed it in. 2 years later, I'm still torn between feeling like a horrible person and feeling like karma had my back. Update, the spirit animal. So, I wasn't planning on writing another update, but I got a few messages asking if Peggy ever explained the tattoo to other people. And oh boy, yes she did. This was maybe 4 or 5 months after she got it. We were at a group hangout at another friend's apartment. There were about 8 of us there, playing Mario Kart, drinking, eating pizza, the usual. Peggy shows up in a tank top, clearly wanting her arm out on display. She sat down next to 2 people she hadn't really hung out with before, and within 10 minutes someone asked about the tattoo. I swear, I could feel her panic. She hesitated, stammered, then launched into what has become one of the funniest monologues I've ever witnessed. Word for word, she said. Well, dragons are actually my spirit animal. They've always, represented my soul. I just feel this deep connection, you know? Like, when I see a dragon, I see myself." She went on for a good 3 minutes, talking about fire and strength and how dragons represent transformation. I sat there pretending to sip my drink so I wouldn't spit it everywhere. One of my friends across the room caught my eye and had to cover his mouth with a napkin to keep from laughing. The 2 new people nodded politely, probably thinking it was just generic tattoo talk. But everyone else who knew the backstory? You could practically hear the collective side-eye. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom just to laugh silently into a towel. Here's the kicker, Peggy didn't even stick with one story. The next time someone asked her, at a different gathering a few weeks later, she claimed she'd always loved Japanese mythology and that her dragon was inspired by ancient folklore. Which would have been believable if she hadn't called it her soul dragon 5 minutes earlier. The mental gymnastics she went through to pretend this was her deep, spiritual, lifelong dream tattoo? Incredible. She was committed. And me? I never said a word. I didn't need to. The harder she tried to convince people it was meaningful, the funnier it became. My silence was my greatest weapon. Now, let's talk about Mark. Remember how I said he was totally oblivious to all of this? That was true. For months, he had no idea Peggy got the tattoo to beat me. He saw it, sure, but he just assumed she liked dragons. He's the kind of guy who doesn't notice drama unless it's spelled out for him. But fast forward almost a year later, and the truth finally came out. A different friend, bless her chaotic soul, let it slip while we were all hanging out. She said something like, "It's still so wild that Peggy copied that fake tattoo idea just to mess with you." The room went silent. Peggy wasn't there, thank God, but Mark's head whipped around. Wait. What? So I told him the story. All of it. The fake Spirited Away backstory, the Haku lie, the smug reveal, the confirmation from the friend who was at the appointment. By the end, Mark had tears streaming down his face from laughing so hard. He actually had to set down his drink because he was shaking with it. His exact words, "She got a massive tattoo based on a movie she's never even seen? That's... wow. That's next level." Then he paused, still chuckling, and added, "I honestly thought she just really liked dragons." We all lost it. And for the record, no, nothing ever happened romantically between Mark and me. We stayed friends, and eventually he started dating someone else who had nothing to do with any of this. But when he did find out, he joined the rest of us in occasionally making sly dragon jokes whenever Peggy wasn't around. I know some people will say I should have just come clean, told Peggy the truth, maybe even apologized. But the thing is, Peggy never once apologized for pushing me into that shelf, or for calling out my divorce to embarrass me, or for months of petty digs. She wanted to take something from me. Instead, she ended up with a permanent reminder of her own pettiness. So I stayed quiet. Still do, to this day. And honestly, I think that silence is why this whole story still cracks me up. If I'd rubbed it in, it would have lost its power. Instead, she's still out there, probably telling new people about her spirit animal while a bunch of us know the truth and try not to laugh. Do I feel bad sometimes? Sure. Tattoos are permanent. But then I remember her exact words, "She's going to be so upset. This is the exact tattoo she wanted." And the guilt evaporates. I don't think she realizes that, in trying to hurt me, she branded herself with her own insecurity. Final update. It's been about 2 years since the tattoo incident, and honestly, I thought the whole thing would fade into a funny memory. But recently, the story took another little twist. A mutual friend told me she ran into Peggy a few months back. They were catching up, and apparently Peggy mentioned she was thinking about modifying her dragon tattoo. She didn't go into detail, just said she wanted to add some elements to make it more her. Which I think is code for, she realized a giant anime dragon she'd never actually watched in a movie maybe wasn't the profound life statement she thought it would be. From what I've heard, she hasn't fully covered it, but she did add some extra line work and flowers around it. I couldn't help but laugh. Because the irony is, if she had just left me alone in the first place, she would have seen my real tattoo idea, a dragon with flowers for my mom, and maybe that would have actually meant something. Instead, she spent hours under a needle for a design she copied out of spite and then had to tweak it later when it didn't hold up. And yes, before anyone asks, she is still giving explanations for it. The last time someone mentioned it in our group chat, Another friend said Peggy had described it as being rooted in ancient mythology and a symbol of transformation. Which, to be fair, is a much better story than I copied it because I thought it would piss someone off. But the people who know the truth. We can't unhear dragons are my spirit animal. That's her legacy now. Mark eventually found out the whole story, like I said in my last update, and to this day he'll still randomly send me dragon memes. Once he even texted me a gif of Mushu from Mulan with no context. It's become an inside joke, and honestly, that's the sweetest karmic cherry on top. Here's the thing, sometimes I still feel a pang of guilt. I mean, she's going to have that tattoo on her arm for life, even with modifications. Tattoos are permanent, and I wouldn't want anyone tricking me into something like that. But then I remember the months of pettiness I endured, the way she deliberately tried to humiliate me in front of friends, and how gleeful she was when she thought she'd beaten me. The truth is, Peggy didn't just copy a tattoo. She copied a story. She copied an identity. And the only reason it backfired so spectacularly was because she was more invested in outdoing me than in finding something that actually mattered to her. I never told her the truth. I probably never will. Letting her live with the belief that she won is funnier than any confrontation would ever be. Because in the end, I didn't lose anything. I still got my tattoo, the one that really matters to me, in a completely different spot and with the flowers for my mom. She, meanwhile, has to either commit to her spirit animal narrative forever or keep trying to retrofit meaning onto a lie. So here I am, years later, still caught between guilt and petty satisfaction. Maybe both can exist at the same time. Sometimes karma doesn't come from the universe. Sometimes it comes from one little white lie at exactly the right time. Was it too far? Maybe. Or maybe she just turned the dragon she deserved.